Hey Tech Defenders, welcome back to Ton Does Linux and More. And wow, do we have an absolutely packed episode for you today. This past week, September 30th through October 6th, 2025, has been one of the most exciting weeks in the Linux world this year. We're talking major kernel releases, distribution updates that are changing the game, desktop environments coming back from the dead after a decade, and hardware support that's going to make your gaming session so much better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfortable, and let's dive into everything that happened in Linux this week. Alright, let's kick things off with the heart of Linux, the kernel. On September 30th, Linus Torvalds released Linux Kernel 6.17, and while he himself admitted it's not the most exciting release, there's actually some really important stuff here that's going to impact a lot of you watching. First up, AMD Ryzen users, you're gonna love this. The 6.17 kernel brings improved hardware feedback interface support, which is a fancy way of saying your hybrid core laptops and desktops are going to get way smarter about handling workloads. We're talking about Smart Mux support that automatically switches between your integrated and discrete graphics based on what you're doing. Gaming, full power. Browsing, battery saver mode. It's intelligent power management at its finest. Intel folks aren't left out either. There's significantly better graphics support, especially for the upcoming XE3 Panther Lake systems. Those Core Ultra Series 3 laptops you'll see hitting shelves by the holidays. Early benchmarks are showing some serious speed improvements for Linux gamers in popular titles. Plus, we've got error detection and correction support for Intel's Bartlett Lake processors, which means better memory error handling and system stability. Now here's something that affects everyone. The kernel has revamped CPU vulnerability management. Remember Spectre and Meltdown? Yeah, those ancient security holes from years ago? They're still a thing. But now Linux 6.17 makes it way easier for system administrators to manage mitigation options through unified kernel command line controls. It's all about balancing security and performance, and now you have better tools to do that. On the storage side, BTRFS gets experimental large folio support for more efficient memory access. And XT4, the most popular Linux file system, introduces buffered I/O control. We also got two new system calls, File Getattr and File Setattr, for advanced file system attribute management. Networking improvements include new gateway routing for MCTP, expanded multipath TCP features, and support for the dual PI2 congestion control protocol. No, here's the thing. 6.17 is not a long-term support release. Yet the next one, 6.18, which is already in development, that's going to be an LTS kernel. So if you need extended support, you might want to wait for that one or stick with 6.12 LTS for now. Moving on to distributions, and we need to talk about openSUSE Leap 16 because this release is a game changer for enterprise and community users alike. Released on October 1st, this is the first release in a brand new lifecycle that's going to run all the way to 2031. Yes, you heard that right, 2031. Here's what makes Leap 16 special. It gives you 24 months of completely free maintenance and security updates. As release manager Lubos Kochman put it, no other community distro offers that at no cost. That's a bold statement, but it's true. This is source and binary identical with SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 16, which means you can develop and test on Leap and deploy on SLES seamlessly. Leap 16 ships with the new Agama installer, replacing the old YAST-based system with something way more modern. Zypper now supports parallel downloads, so your software installations and updates are going to be noticeably faster. The distribution is 2038 safe, which means it's ready for the year 2038 problem that's going to affect 32-bit systems. Speaking of 32-bit, it's disabled by default now, but you can still enable it manually if you need it for things like Steam Gaming, which still relies on 32-bit libraries. The minimum CPU requirement is now x86-64v2, which generally means CPUs from 2008 or later. If you've got older hardware, you'll want to look at Slow Roll or Tumbleweed instead. Next up, Raspberry Pi OS got a massive update on October 1st. It's now based on Debian 13 Trixie instead of Debian 12, and it's still running on the Linux 6.12 LTS kernel. But the visual changes here are what really stand out. We've got two brand new GTK themes, Pixtrix for standard mode and Pixonix for dark mode. There's a new icon theme also called Pixtrix, a new system font called Nunito Sans Light, and fresh desktop wallpapers that give the whole OS a modern, polished look. The taskbar now has a system monitor plugin for power warnings and system alerts. But the biggest change is the new Control Center application. This replaces all those old separate preference apps. Raspberry Pi configuration, appearance settings, mouse and keyboard settings, screen configuration, and printer settings, all in one unified interface. It's way more intuitive and easier to navigate. Plus, there are two new command line utilities, RPI Keyboard Config for configuring keyboards and RPI Keyboard FW Update for updating keyboard firmware. The whole installation is more modular now, making it easier to convert a light image to a full desktop and vice versa, which was never really supported before. And we can't forget about Ubuntu Touch. The UBports team released version 24.04-10 on September 30th, marking the first version built on Ubuntu 24.04 LTS. This is a huge upgrade from the old Ubuntu 20.04 base, bringing a much newer software stack, including Qt 5.15. You can now switch the shell to light mode, not just apps. There's experimental support for encrypting personal data, which is massive for security if your device gets lost or stolen. The phone app has a refreshed layout that's better suited for bigger screens. And there's a new USB mode setting that lets you choose between charging, file transfer, or internet sharing over USB. Hardware support expanded too, with the Fairphone 5 joining the list of compatible devices, along with support for Asus Zenfone Max Pro M1, FX Tech Pro 1X, various OnePlus and Xiaomi models, Google Pixel 3a, and the Vala lineup. Okay, this next story is wild. Cairo-Dock? You might remember it from the early 2010s. It was this super popular dock application that made Linux desktops look amazing. Well, it's been dead for a decade. No updates, nothing. Until October 1st, 2025, when Cairo-Dock 3.6 dropped out of nowhere with a brand new maintainer. And it's not just a minor update. This thing now supports Wayland. It works with KDE Plasma's KWin, LabWC, Wayfire, Cosmic, Sway, and Hyperland. The one major limitation? It doesn't support GNOME Shell or Mutter yet. So if you're running stock Ubuntu or Fedora Workstation, you're out of luck for now. But wait, there's more. Cairo-Dock 3.6 brings high DPI support, which means all elements render crisp and clear on high-resolution displays with integer scale factors. No more blurry icons. There's systemd integration so you can run it as a service, and apps launched from Cairo-Dock are automatically put into their own systemd slice for better resource management. The weather applet got updated with a new weather provider, and app detection has been improved across the board. If you're feeling nostalgic or just want to add some serious eye candy to your Linux desktop, Cairo-Dock is back and better than ever. Speaking of desktop environments, Cinnamon 6.6 is currently in development with some really exciting features. The big one is improved support for keyboard layouts and input methods. In the past, keyboard settings and the keyboard applet were kind of a mess. Now they're unified into one cohesive system with full Wayland support built in. The application menu is getting a complete redesign too, making it more modern and easier to navigate. Linux Mint is planning to release version 22.3 in December 2025 with these Cinnamon improvements, so that's something to look forward to. On the application side, openSSL 3.6.0 was released on October 1st with some important cryptography updates. The headline feature is LMS signature verification support. That's Leighton-McCallie signatures for those keeping track. There's also FIPS 140-3 PCT on DH key generation. PCT for key import for SLH DSA when in FIPS mode, and support for the FIPS provider to perform additional operations. This might sound super technical, and it is, but OpenSSL is the foundation of secure communications on the internet. These updates mean better security and compliance for enterprise deployments, which ultimately benefits everyone using Linux in production environments. Alright, let's talk hardware and drivers, because this week brought some really solid improvements. NVIDIA released driver version 580.95.05 on September 30th, and it's now the latest recommended driver for Linux users. The standout feature here is support for YCB color 422 display modes over HDMI FRL. That's fixed rate link for those wondering. What does this mean in practical terms? Better color reproduction and bandwidth efficiency when you're connecting to modern displays and TVs. If you're using your Linux machine as a home theater PC or you've got a high-end monitor, this is going to give you better image quality. This is the third stable release in the 580 production branch, and it's available for pretty much every major Linux distribution. If you're running NVIDIA hardware, definitely grab this update. Now, looking ahead to Linux 6.18, the DRM pull request has been merged, and there's some seriously cool stuff coming for graphics. We're getting two brand new drivers, the Rocket Accelerator driver for Rockchip NPUs, which has been reverse engineered by the community and works with Mesa 25.3, and the Tire driver, which is a new Rust-based driver for ARM Mali GPUs. Tire isn't usable yet, but it's exciting to see more Rust code making its way into the kernel graphics stack. AMD users are getting CRIU support for checkpoint and restore of gem memory objects, expanded VCN engine reset support, and improvements for those old GCN 1.0 GPUs. The AMD XDNA accelerator driver now supports user space allocated buffers and has improved error reporting. Intel's XE driver is getting a new interface for querying VMA count and memory attributes, a Power Profile sysfs interface for power management tuning, SR-IOV support for CCS surfaces on Z2+, and display enabling for Intel Wildcat Lake. Plus, Intel has returned to working on the upstream Habana Labs accelerator driver under new maintainers, which is great to see. For open-source NVIDIA users, the Nouveau driver now defaults to using NVIDIA's GSP firmware, which should improve compatibility and performance. And the ARM Mali Panther DRM driver added support for a bunch of new GPUs: Mali G710, G510, G310, GX15, GX20, and GX25. And here's one for the gamers. Valve released a Steam client update on October 3rd that significantly improves support for DualSense controllers on Linux. The update prevents crashes that occurred when DualSense controllers were connected and idle, improves the high contrast view, and includes various bug fixes. If you've been having issues with your PS5 controller on Linux, this update should solve most of them. Let's take a moment to celebrate some of the amazing community-driven projects and releases from this week. We saw new releases of Garuda Linux across multiple editions: DR4609, DR4609 Gaming, TDE Lite, GNOME, XFC, Maka, Cinnamon, Hyperland, Sway, and i3, all dated October 2nd. That's a testament to how active and diverse the Garuda community is. KDE Neon released their October 2nd snapshot, bringing the latest KDE Plasma and applications to Ubuntu LTS users. Arch Linux dropped their October 1st ISO, and Tiny Core Linux released version 16.2, continuing to be one of the smallest and most efficient Linux distributions out there. On the application front, we got updates to some really important tools. Mesa 25.2.4 was released with bug fixes and performance improvements for open-source graphics drivers. Mozilla Firefox hit versions 143.0.4 and 143.0.3 with security patches. Calibre 8.12 brings new features for ebook management. Docker 28.5.0 improves container workflows. And we saw updates to Qt 6.9.3, GTK 4.20.2, and Qt Creator 17.0.2. Looking forward, we've got some exciting releases coming up. KDE Gear 25.08.2 is expected soon. Ubuntu 25.10 is in beta and should release later this month. GNOME 49.1 and GNOME 48.6 are on the horizon, and Fedora 43 beta was released on October 2nd, with the final release targeted for late October or early November. The Linux ecosystem is thriving, and it's incredible to see so many projects moving forward simultaneously. This is what makes open source so powerful. Thousands of developers and contributors around the world all working together to make Linux better for everyone. Alright, Tech Defenders, that's everything from this absolutely massive week in Linux. We covered kernel updates that are making AMD and Intel systems faster and more secure, distribution releases that are changing the enterprise landscape, desktop environments rising from the dead, and hardware support that's making gaming and creative work better than ever. If you found this video helpful, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future Linux news roundups. Drop a comment below and let me know, what was your favorite announcement from this week? Are you excited about openSUSE Leap 16's long-term support? Are you going to try Cairo-Dock again? Let me know. And if you want to dive deeper into any of these topics, I've got links to all the source articles and project pages in the description below. Check them out, support the projects you care about, and keep the open source spirit alive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep doing Linux.